Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 9th special meeting of the East Vincent Township Planning Commission. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have one thing on our agenda tonight, and that is to review the most recent revised submission for the Penhurst Holdings data center property. And I want to start off by turning it over to Haley to talk about kind of how this application or the plan submission fits in with the overall application, and the conditional use hearing that's coming up, and how to submit to be a party to that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of go over everything and how it, started. So this, what is before the Planning Commission this evening is a revised plan under the same application. And I just want to make it clear too that this is an additional recommendation for the application itself. And the hearing for the conditional use hearing will be on April 20th, and that will be held at the East Vincent Elementary School, which is at 340 Ridge Road. That'll begin at 6:30 p.m. That will be available via Zoom as well. And, also we have received some party status applications, but if you have not submitted it, please do so at this time or sometime in between here and then. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, I'll just start off by saying that I know I speak for some of the planning commission members, perhaps all of them. I haven't talked to all of them yet, but I think we're all feeling that our time is being wasted by the applicant because we are given so little information and no opportunity to ask questions. So we have reviewed the application. We've got some kind of high level comments specifically related to some of the newer parts of the application. But I'm going to go over just a couple of the major points that are new from the application that we reviewed this time, as opposed to the one we reviewed at our March meeting. So the building square footage went from about 1.3 million square feet over 5 buildings to 1.9 million square feet over 3 buildings. Both of them are proposed to be 2-story buildings. However, we don't know the height. The first plan had proposed a 52,000 square foot office building, and the second plan does not include this office building, which does potentially present issues since our industrial mixed use district is supposed to be for mixed uses. The new plan includes a 5-acre area for a power generation and battery storage facility. We don't know anything about this. There was not a revised site impact narrative submitted for this new plan. So we really have almost no information. Both plans included a 5-acre area allotted for a substation with no details about the substation's construction. Both have a similar offset from the Veterans Center, the closest sensitive receptor to the site, with the most recent plan being 10 or 20 feet closer than the last plan. So those are the main things I picked out that were different. So we reviewed the letters from our consultants. A lot of the same issues remain. They didn't address any of the issues that were raised in the consultants' review letters that I noted. And now there's new things that were raised in the consultants' letters, including power generation facilities are not permitted in that district unless they're a public utility. Like I mentioned, removing the office building makes it potentially no longer a mixed use development. There's impervious coverage needs to be clearly indicated. We have no idea what the impervious coverage of the power generation facility and substation would be. And there is no indication of what the impact of any of these facilities would be. So there's some significant deficiencies in the application. I want to allow each of the planning commission members to identify any of their major concerns with the application that we can get on the record. So why don't we do that now? Lawson, do you want to start?
Sure, thank you very much. That was a very concise summary of the deficiencies in this revised plan. As Rachel said, there are many things we actually don't know about this proposal. The narrative did not accompany the plan, so details of many things are, well, missing. They're just not there. And as far as I'm aware, the applicant did not decide to appear tonight to answer any questions. But some of the things that strike me beyond the deficiencies, which are very obvious and will require multiple zoning variances, there's been no consideration to topography, no consideration to steep slopes, disturbances of the natural area itself, and very little data on screening, on noise abatement, particularly for the power generation plant. We know, based on a one line in the letter, it's proposed to be natural gas, but there's no details on noise, on emissions, on vibrations, and no further detail on water usage or indeed electrical power usage. For a data center that has a square footage, just to contextualize it, of approximately 41 acres. I can't visualize 1.9 million square feet. I'm sure visualize 41 acres. You can imagine the amount of power that that's going to require and the amount of cooling that's going to require. And there's a recent study actually published looking at data centers and ambient temperatures. And the ambient temperature around data centers in a rural environment goes up by about 2 to 3 degrees, which makes an enormous local environmental impact. So my view on this is a plan that looks like 3 big boxes have been dropped from Planet Zog onto the Penhurst tract with no thought for local topography or local impact, and certainly no explanation of that. And as I was with the previous plan, I am not minded to recommend approval at this point.
Thank you. Elaine, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I agree with everything Lawson said. Let's try to cover some other points. I do have a position paper from the EAC, but I really don't want to read it out loud. It just adds in some of the newer problems with this new development, which is, bigger and less satisfying of our zoning order than the previous zoning ordinance than our previous one. I'm just going to read the summary statement of the EAC, and then I'll speak on my own. It is the opinion of the EAC that the Penhurst data center proposal is environmentally risky, threatening water, air, noise, and ecological stability in the area, incompatible with surrounding land use designations and township intent, non-compliant with multiple sections of township ordinances protecting public health, safety, and the environment. It is ill-suited for the IMU district and local infrastructure capacity. All these concerns have been addressed in the draft ordinance the township was working on, and further in the position paper written by East Vincent Advocacy. We strongly suggest that the guidelines given in those documents be added as conditions in the conditional use process if the application does proceed. I just wanted to point out some of the major differences that I saw, and of course, the size is even larger than before and doesn't satisfy our ordinance at all. The maximum footprint that is allowed for this for the IMU district for a planned commercial, whatever it is 45,000 feet, 45,000 square foot footprint. And then you can increase the size only by going up. You can't make it any bigger. You can increase the size using TDRs. Problem is the IMU district is not a receiving zone for TDRs, so that doesn't even work. So the maximum building size is 45,000 square feet. The 3 buildings that are planned here Building A is 266,400 square feet. Building B is 200 square feet. Building C is 600 square feet, a little bit larger than 45,000. Rachel gave you the total amount, but, so, I mean, it just doesn't follow our zoning period, so that can kill it right there. Then the further problem with this new plan is that power plants have no legal use in the IMD district at all. So that's just not, there can't be there. And now that there are no other uses, this does not satisfy the definition of a planned commercial development, which is what they were coming in under. So to me, those are the major zoning issues. All the other issues are horrible, but it's the zoning issues that will count in the long run.
Thank you. Nicole, any thoughts?
Yeah, I wrote out my thoughts. One of the fundamental issues is that this application is before the township as a conditional use because the ordinance does not specifically define a data center use. While the applicant may have identified a procedural pathway through the IMC use district, a procedural pathway is not the same as demonstrating substantive compliance with the ordinance. Conditional use approval is not automatic. It requires a clear demonstration that the proposal meets the applicable standards. The burden remains on the applicant to clearly demonstrate that this proposal and its scale, intensity, and operation is appropriate for the site and compliant with the ordinance standards. In my view, the burden has not been met. This is an extremely large and intensive development. The overall building area, combined with the extensive equipment yards, represents a level of mass and site coverage that appears to go well beyond what would reasonably be anticipated or appropriately accommodated within the district, particularly given the surrounding context. The magnitude of the proposal itself raises significant concern about the compatibility and long-term impact. I also want to emphasize that both the scale of the development and the extent of the supporting infrastructure raise concerns about overall intensity. In particular, the power generation system, including backup generators, battery storage, and associated equipment, do not appear to be incidental to the use. They appear to be integral to how the facility would operate and to a level of impact it would have on the site and surrounding area. At this point, those elements remain insufficiently defined, particularly in noise, vibration, fuel storage, and hazard potential. The ordinance is also clear that certain impact-based conditions cannot be created in this district, including impacts related to noise, vibration, and air quality, waste, and public health and safety. Those are not optional considerations, and yet many of those same impact areas have not been clearly addressed or demonstrated to comply with those standards. In addition, the site itself presents environmental constraints that have not been fully resolved on this application. These include drainage and watershed considerations, potential wetland and hydraulic sensitivity, underlying geologic conditions, and proximity to critical infrastructure in the Schuylkill River system. I'm also particularly concerned about the water demand and cooling requirements associated with this type of facility. Large-scale data center operations typically rely on significant water use and cooling system, and is not clearly documented how water will be sourced, managed, or discharged. There are also unanswered questions regarding potential thermal discharge and downstream impacts to water quality within the Schuylkill River watershed. For a project of this scale, the potential effects on water resources, both on-site and downstream, are not secondary considerations. They are fundamental to determining whether the use is appropriate at this location, and I do not believe those issues have been adequately addressed. From a land use perspective, I do not believe the applicant has demonstrated that the scale, massing, and overall character of this development are compliant with the surrounding areas, which include residential uses, institutional uses, recreational resources, and important environmental corridor. And while I understand attendance may not have been required this evening, for a proposal of this magnitude and potential impact on the township, it would have been appropriate and courteous to have a representative present to answer questions. Ultimately, the applicant remains incomplete, and most consequentially, elements of the proposal remain insufficiently defined, and the level of uncertainty is too high for me to support this application.
Thank you for all the thought you put into that. That was great.
Very well done.
Can I just say one more thing I forgot? The applicant appears to be making no attempt to communicate or to listen to what we're saying at all. Absolutely none. And I mean, just the fact that there's a stream running through the property, and they've been told there's a stream running through the property, and they still haven't put the stream on the map and all what that stream means. Plus all the woodlands that are just now almost entirely obliterated. Can't say the word, you know what I'm going to say. And I could go on.
Michelle?
Thanks, Rachel. James. Is that on?
Okay.
I was gonna speak specifically to environmental impacts, related to our existing, code, for the township. And one of the things you just brought up, Elaine, relates to water courses. Our existing code is very, specific in defining water courses, including natural or man-made. And for a parcel of this size, 123 acres, to not have any water courses would be unexpected. So it's critically important that the applicant provide that information. We need to know what the resources are. Additionally, they've shown, they're indicating 3 stormwater basins on the current plan, but there's absolutely no information for our code regarding drainage areas. Impervious cover is missing. The plans are highly deficient in the information required to even consider whether what the plans are representing is can be considered under our code. The information simply isn't there. And it's interesting to note that they have a very large stormwater basin in an area that's almost entirely wooded and includes steep slopes. Again, these are things that are in contradiction to our existing East Vincent code. Our East Vincent code specifically identifies specimen trees as any tree of 24 inches, essentially 24 inches DBH or greater in the list, which appears to have been done back in 2018. So it's not clear when the trees were identified. That could be a very old list at this point. There are at least 421 living trees of that size or greater. And most of them will be removed as a result of this plan. To read our code, it says regarding specimen trees, chapter 22, 429-2, C2 states that no specimen vegetation shall be removed from any lot or tract except where the applicant demonstrates to the satisfaction of the Board of Supervisors that such removal is essential to eliminate hazardous conditions or otherwise permit lawful use of the lot or tract. This section of the ordinance also states that where permitted, removal of specimen trees shall be minimized. Removing 421 trees of that size, including at least 14 trees that are 40 inches or greater. There's even a tree listed, if it's not a typo, of 160-inch DBH sycamore, if that's correct. So there seems to be no consideration in the plans. They've simply drawn what they think, what's indicated as stormwater basins with no supporting information on size or calculations or requirements or drainage areas. The information simply isn't provided. The same can be said of the steep slopes and the impacts on steep slopes, the missing data on impervious surfaces. And then there is a section of the existing East Vincent Code 27-1508 called Conservation of Water Resources. It says the purpose is to guarantee that water use or consumption does not exceed sustainable groundwater and surface water supplies or is subject to inappropriate mitigation measures. there is no information provided in the application on their water needs or their usage needs, or that water is available or where it's coming from. Our code requires an applicant under conditional use develop a, what do they call it in our code? The conditional use plan, let me find the language from the code. Any use subdivision or land development meeting one or more of the following criteria shall submit a water budget impact analysis to the township. The required water budget impact analysis shall be submitted at the time of preliminary subdivision, conditional use application, etc. So they have not provided any information even on their water needs, let alone an analysis and a water budget analysis to that effect. So there are enough deficiencies related to environmental issues that I cannot support recommendation of approval of this plan.
Thank you very much for that in-depth review. Chris, do you have anything you'd like to
Anything to
say?
add? Not really. I mean, everybody's succinctly put together everything and said that based on these deficiencies in the report, in their plan and everything, that they're not in the way to approve it or don't recommend it, supervisor to approve. And I agree with everyone. Based on the information was provided to me, there's numerous deficiencies, especially the groundwater, which is my specialty, which Michelle took away from me. But I cannot recommend the supervisors approve this application.
Thanks, Chris. It's hard to go last. We'll do public comment
Oh,
afterwards.
I just had a quick question. When does a plan become a new plan as opposed to a revised plan? I mean, it would seem to me that has a legal definition. Do we have anybody
So
who?
Haley spoke to
is
that in the
lawfully-
beginning, that our code doesn't specify that, correct?
Yeah, in the township ordinance, the code does not specify that it has to be a new application. When a project is going through conditional use, they can submit a revised plan under the same application. And if you have other
That
questions.
could be completely different and that would still be considered a revised plan.
Revised plan. And, on our township website as well, the solicitor did draft a letter, to that effect. But if you have further, legal questions or anything like that, I'm happy to pass those along to him.
Okay, so last but
Hey,
not
Rachel, you mind if I say something quick?
yes, please, it's your turn.
I did take a minute just to write some stuff down. I just want to read through this real quick. This proposal raises serious concerns that show this site is not appropriate for this type of development. The project requires numerous zoning variances and conditional approvals, including allowances for excessive building height and size, disturbance of very steep slopes, and impact of protected riparian buffers, along with approval of power generation and battery storage facilities that are not currently permitted uses. Major issues also remain unresolved, including unclear water and sewer capacity, potential environmental remediation, impacts to wetlands and woodlands, and unanswered questions about noise, vibration, hazardous materials, and emergency response capabilities. The traffic analysis relies on outdated studies, meaning the true transportation impacts are still unknown. The scale and character of the proposed development, nearly 2 million square feet, are also inconsistent with the surrounding area, which includes homes, a park, the Schuylkill River Trail, and a nearby veterans retirement community that would be directly affected. Finally, the current plan differs so substantially from the original submission that it should not be treated as a simple amendment, but rather an entirely new proposal requiring a full and careful review. And that may go in conflict to what Haley just said, but thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. So I mean, I think that we're all pretty aligned on how we feel about this. Would anyone like to make a motion on a recommendation to the board?
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend that this revised plan is not approved by the board.
Okay. Okay, so now we'll do public comment, and I would like to take it, because we were here last month talking about the data center. We heard a lot of comments then. I would like to take comments on specifically the new parts of the application, so the new layout, the power generation facility, that sort of thing. Just to be respectful of everybody's time, so please, come on up. And please limit comments to 3 minutes and state your name and address.
Sure.
I don't have a green light. You just have to.
Your own power generation.
Oh, excellent. I'm sorry, I'm pressing you. Thank you, Kennedy. Larry Shank, 130 Shady Lane. I think most of you have at least heard my name or seen my comments online. So hopefully it's not a big surprise that I'm against this. 130 Shady Lane is about 2,000 feet from the Pennhurst site. So aside from the Veteran Center, we're one group of residents that are directly affected by this. There are 5 of us who live in the house. Myself, my fiance, and her 3 children. I'm actually not going to talk too much about the technical aspects because I'm saving that with the expectation that I'm going to get party status. But having power generation that close to our homes, that's a non-starter for me. I mean, this plan was an abomination to start, and now we're just making it worse. So again, my main purpose of coming up tonight really is just to keep my name out there, keep my face out there, put a human aspect to this whole thing, because we're going to be affected. No matter what the builder says, no matter what anybody says, there are going to be effects. It's going to hurt our lives. There are many health, safety, public safety hazards, and I'll go into all those details when I get my opportunity to testify at the hearing on the 20th. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And hi, if you're out there, anybody from Penn.
Pat Ramsey, 116 Pennhurst. Another legal question. So if there are numerous things which are in violation or would be in violation of existing code, does the Board of Supervisors really have the right to essentially overrule that code and permit?
I don't think we're gonna answer legal questions tonight, but we can pass them along.
Yeah, okay. It wouldn't be binding. I was just wondering if anybody had thought about that and knew the answer.
Yeah,
I thought they did.
we're not able to answer that, but our solicitor is not here, but I can pass that along to him. And if you,
So we should go Googling.
no,
Maybe we should use AI.
if you want to give me your contact if you want to give me your contact information after the meeting, and I can get that response to you.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
I'm Tim Thornton, 256 New Street. I'm the guy that's giving away all the signs against the day. Yeah. Well, I'm nothing, still more to go. I ran Vanguard's data center for a long time, $100 million. And to give you an idea about the complexity of this thing, we had 3 of these generators that ran all our center. And this one right now would have 285 of the same thing. We had 3 of them. And they were like airplane engines. And this thing is so complex. I've looked at all the ones and you can't even get your head around it. So, I mean, it was a big task to ask you to try to figure this out, because people that have been doing it forever can't figure it out. And the one thing that God forbid it does ever happen, the one thing you should also think about if he has $1 billion invested in this, and then there's a sound problem. What can you do? Can you stop him? Can you say you can't run that center?
What if there's something that happens to actually to the temperature? What if something happens to the water? How do you stop them? So that's really a big issue, because if you go on the internet, all the towns that are trying to deal with this, they can't stop them. Because Google and Amazon and all these guys are behind them. And they have unlimited lawyers. And we don't have it. We can't fight it. So one thing that would be very, God forbid, again, it doesn't happen, but what happens if things go wrong and prove it? Because things will go wrong. It's very complex. And you can already tell this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's not representing this. There's somebody behind it being represented. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Chris?
He was tall. Chris McNeil, I'm here tonight. I am a resident at Nottingham Drive, but I'm here tonight representing East Vincent Advocacy. We have 1,000 members in our organization. We have applied for party status, but tonight to the Planning Commission, I know you made a very simple motion. I would like you to consider amending that motion so that every statement that was made by individual members would be written and given to the Board of Supervisors and attached to your motion, so that there is a very written documentation of all the details that you have illustrated here, so that the board has a written record of that. Secondly, just across the river, there are two other potential proposals for data centers. One almost as big as ours across from Costco, and I believe that pieces of the puzzle are being put together for the Publicker site. So this other aspect that I think East Vincent should be really talking about is there is a larger regional impact at play here. And I think that our Planning Commission should recognize that regional impact, potential regional impact that is far more serious than just one here in East Vincent. And, you know, years ago, we used to be regionally minded and belonged to two regional organizations and shared ideas and information and had written agreements with each other. Haven't done that in a long time, but I hope you all would step up and have some kind of statement about a regional impact. You alluded slightly to the fact that there will be this raising of temperature 2 to 3 degrees. Someone's here tonight who can speak about it more eloquently than I can. Bill Fields, I hope he'll come up and talk about that heat island effect, especially with the power generation. So Bill, I'm relying on you. The last thing I want to talk about, which was not mentioned, although it was both brought up in the consultant reports, and something that is important to me, coming from Providence, Rhode Island, which is probably one of the big centers for historic preservation on the East Coast. I worked diligently with the Pennhurst Memorial Preservation Alliance over this winter and put in an application for the reconsideration of eligibility status for the historic registry nomination of the remaining Pennhurst buildings. And that was accepted by the State Historic Preservation Commission. Nobody's talked about the buildings. And when you go back in history and look at what type of $10 million loan this developer took out, he made certain promises that he was going to preserve and adaptively reuse 6 of the historic core buildings. We all know about its regional significance, but I want to state emphatically that you all understand that this is an international, you got it? International site of conscience. It's not little. Major events have occurred there, both legally on a national scale, to be able to provide freedom and independence. Part of the name of Independence Park is to hearken to, you know, what happened at Pennhurst. that people were given their rights to live in a more humane basis. And to absolutely obliterate those buildings and to put that obscene power generation plant on the top of the administration building, the most significant building on that site, designed by architects of renown, is an insult. So I would like the historic aspects of this to be acknowledged in your comments, and that you consider amending your motion to that effect. He has no right to tear down those buildings, and thank you, Gannett Fleming, for noting it in your revised document that none of his prior approvals have any relevance now, because it has been determined to be eligible to be listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And we need to, I believe, uphold part of our really important cultural character and historic character and learnings about what independence means, not just 250 years. It's individual rights. And they were forged here in East Vincent Township. The last thing I would like to bring up is that I know you talk about the Schuylkill River Trail and recreation, but we are part of a national and state heritage corridor area. There are not many of them in the country or in the state of Pennsylvania. This is a unique honor and also a mantle of responsibility to have proper, compatible economic development along the corridor. And we have, through that National Heritage Corridor, economic plans and development visions for how that corridor should be treated. This is absolutely against anything that has ever been proposed for that state and national heritage corridor. So tonight I have those additional recommendations. I hope you take them into consideration for your resolution to the board. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? In the green shirt back there. Oh, it's Bill.
Bill Fields, Standing Run Road. Since Chris kind of invited me to come up here and talk to you guys, out there and talk to you. I mean, I guess there's two subjects probably to talk about. I was a chief engineer for a large aerospace company. So I've done a lot of work with high power, I've done work with data centers in the past. And I guess the one thing is to just talk about the power side of things. When we talk about 500 megawatts, you know, 500 megawatts really is, and look at it compared to the size of the nuclear power plant. You know, the nuclear power plants sitting there with two reactors, 1.2 gigawatts each, so it stands a little over 1,000 megawatts each. So we're saying that it's a quarter of the power of the entire nuclear infrastructure in the area, which is massive. Obviously, there isn't 25% reserve on that power plant. So a significant portion is going to have to be generated locally. So when we talk about local power generation, people think of backup generators. They think, as the gentleman over here was talking about, you think about a megawatt, 2 megawatts, maybe even 2.5 from the biggest 53-foot trailers that are going around, big generators. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about probably, you know, 200, 300. I'm not sure how much they have in reserve they can get from the power plant, but we're talking about 200, 300, maybe 400 megawatts, which means it's a facility. It's a power generating facility. It's not generators that you and I think of as backing up facilities. So that kind of power makes a tremendous amount of heat. It makes large smokestacks. You know, the smokestacks may not be blowing out smoke because they're burning LP or natural gas, but it's a weather changing type of thing, the amount of heat that comes out of those. So that's certainly worthy of consideration. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the longevity. What happens in the future? Let's say that the power plant data center is built. What happens in the future if the demand isn't there? And there's a side to it that says, if you look at what the tech minds of the world are involved in right now, you look at Elon Musk, you know, he's got his Tesla, he's got his tons of small companies right there, the Boring Company and Neuralink and others. But he's got SpaceX, he's got XAI, he's got Tesla. The three of those are working together now and created a company called TerraFab. And TerraFab is building ships for space. They're building also for AI on the ground. They realize the future is in space. And so they're building rad-hardened ships for the space environment. And when you talk to him about why you're building so many for space, he said, because that's where data centers will be in the future. You know, when you're in space, solar power is 5 to 8 times stronger than what it is on the Earth. And there's no wind, there's no weather. You can open up solar arrays that are literally miles in size. You know, so you can get all of the power you need for free from space. You have only that initial delivery charge, you know, that's going to offset it. But that being said, the belief is still that in the future, and if he plans on having these up there in the next 4 years or so, that we'll have floating data centers. Not just, and this isn't just Elon Musk, so you can say, well, Elon Musk is crazy or I don't believe it. Then go to Google. Google has Suncatcher. They're doing the same thing. There's a third company out there also doing the same basic design. But the point is, they expect, you know, when you measure the performance of data centers, whether it's in flops or gigaflops, right, floating point operations per second, they feel it's going to be approximately 5 times cheaper than data centers on Earth. So with that said, if everybody runs out and builds a data center here, is the data center going to be used? You know, it's going to become too expensive or price itself out of the market. And they're the kind of things we have to look at because, you know, somebody could argue, well, you know, they'll have the ping time will be faster if it's local. But the question becomes how many of the requests have to be done on a short ping time. So it's just an interesting problem to say, you know, is it really going to be essential to have a lot of data centers here on the ground when everything's moving to space? So, you know, and I don't know what our plan is or what the participants' plan is for what would happen then, you know, because they will have a huge investment, you know, and you know, destroy the area up there. And yet, I don't know, you know, for sure in 10 years, whether it will be, you know, viable or not.
Thanks,
So-
Bill. Point taken.
Okay.
Point taken. Thank you.
Okay, so, but yeah, anyway, that's, all I have to say, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Joanna Tenney, New Street.
10-second tinnitus reversing method used by astronauts.
I don't want that part of my public comment. Anyway, I just kind of want to say, like, thank you again, for seeing the deficiencies in this, and, it's insane to me how many there are. And as a taxpayer, I'm offended. I agree 100% that this is a waste of time and money, not only for you guys in the township, but for us. I mean, I could be home with my kids. Sure, many other people could as well. And I know that we probably can't answer this question because Joe's not here, but my only question is, you know, is this really a complete plan? According to the MPC, is it complete? I haven't been able to dig through and find what all the criteria is for that. Just throwing it out there for anybody. And then my last thing is, to note, I've searched in the revised plan, those words exactly, and it's not in our code in regards to the conditional use process. So it should be considered a new plan, or we need to just get a new solicitor. Any other public comment? No. I'm gonna remind everybody about the 3-minute limit, please.
Maria Markovich, Nottingham Drive. You had mentioned that you're not getting any more information from the applicant, that they're not really responding. And, you know, that's may indicate that they're planning to not respond, maybe address it in court or legally otherwise. And so I was just wondering, what would be the plan in terms of if there was a legal challenge for funding that legal challenge? Are there sources of income such as grants that could be used in a situation to handle a legal challenge?
Never heard of them.
I haven't heard of grants, but I mean, that's another question that I can get a response to you from the solicitor. Okay.
Thank you.
Monica Scriber, Valley Creek Lane. I just want to reiterate, especially with the use of generators, that they're called emergency generators, but I really believe after all the research that I've done and what I've heard from everybody is there's no such thing as emergency generators. I found a study, and I just want to bring it up for the children because there is a daycare and there are residents with children in the area that there was a study done. I mentioned the death by diesel study that shows that our area of Pennsylvania is at high risk for diesel particulates. And this study was done by the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments, Moms Clean Air Force, and Generation 180. They found that diesel pollution from trucks poses serious health risks to children, especially those who live, learn, or play near major trucking routes. This close proximity to diesel exhaust, dangerous mix of carcinogens and respiratory irritants and inflammatory agents exposes adults and children to diesel particulate matter, or soot, as it's called. The thing that you don't think about is children and infants, their organs are still developing. And so they're taking more breaths than we are. I never really thought about it, but they're breathing in more. So they're going to get more of this particulate matter. And so, as you all have said, you know, is this the right use for this area, considering we have children, we have residents living so close. And I found this research interesting, and I thought I would share it. And again, it sets kids up to fail because they develop asthma, other can develop heart issues from this. You know, what do we want in our community? Do we want our residents exposed to this? Again, just wanted to add it. I found the study. I thought it was very interesting. And thank you again, all your time, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Cindy Ramsey's Penhurst Road, 116. I'm going to add where Monica's going with this. We talk about children. We have the elderly. We have those vets up there. They're on oxygen, have breathing issues. I know I've dealt with a lot of them in my own, business of the medical system. So why are we not taking that into, this air situation? These generators are going to be putting out all these toxins right next to a vet center where the elderly are already, surviving, and they've given their lives for our country. So I'd like for you to really think about that, think that the vets are there and they're sick, they don't need to be made any sicker. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's just note that there were so many things missing from the impact narrative that we were sort of reacting to what was there. And you really just need more information to be able to even react to things like that, because they need to tell us what the air quality impacts are allegedly going to be. And without having any information at all, what are we to say other than, you know, the same things you all are saying?
Hi, I'm from West Whiteland Township. Do you allow other township members to briefly speak? So my name's Ginny Marcel Kerslake. I'm from West Whiteland Township. I actually sit on my township planning commission. So I'll thank you for all your service. I know what it takes to be up there and the work it does. And I do want to say, honestly, I'm very impressed by the work that you guys put into reviewing this and your comments tonight. I've been working on this issue across Pennsylvania, and I've seen all kinds of planning commissions, and you guys really have done a great job. I want to echo an early comment about the recommendation that you put all these comments together and submit them with your recommendation to the Board of Supervisors and make that a strongly worded recommendation to deny this this plan. And then I had one other comment to make. Well, actually a question first. Is the township considering the former plan withdrawn?
Yes, the former plan is withdrawn. The second that revised plan came, that plan became withdrawn.
Okay, good. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. I'll just, before the senator talks, I'll just note that we have talked about putting a motion together after this to authorize somebody from the planning commission to make a statement as the conditional use on behalf of the planning commission, but I do like the idea. There were some really excellent statements made, so that shouldn't be lost. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Katie Muth, East Vincent resident. I want to say thank you for your thoroughness. I know this takes a lot to go through all these plans that are often, for at least for me, crash my computer, trying to zoom in on the maps. And that brings me to the first thing I want to point out, and one of you might have put it in your analysis of this newer design. There is, the setbacks are noted by the buildings. And if you look at the one building, it has no measurement of a setback to the Veterans Center. And it's actually a little bit closer to the Veterans Center, and that's probably why they left it off. And I just say that it is not just as a point of sneakiness and deception, that if you're gonna measure setbacks, because we can all go do it on Google Earth and stand there and go get coordinates and do the same things without fancy tools that engineers have, but they should have measured setbacks from all of their buildings. And I spent the earlier part of my day with the squad of veterans at the veterans home, talking with them about this plan. They had some questions, and you know what struck me is that, again, not only is this applicant not presenting itself to the planning commission, you are an entity of this township, right? You're here for a reason, and they chose for the second time not to come. But I also want to point out that they spent an extensive amount of money to put out paid, I'm sure you saw paid ads throughout your social media. And just want to point out that that same firm that created those AI generated images of Spring City, instead of just walking down the street and taking actual pictures of the community that you plan to pollute and impact, they used AI generated images. But that same firm that created those is also helping data centers in the Northeast. So there's a very coordinated plan, and I know that feels overwhelming because it's a David and Goliath battle, but and there is a way to say no, and there is requirements under the municipal planning code to take the health and safety and welfare of the community into consideration when deciding a land use, and you all know that. So the last thing I just want to point out is, not only did Pennhurst AI not show up for this meeting, they met with, including Mr. Strine himself, and this is very important for you all to know, met with state officials from the Pennsylvania Department of Military and Veteran Affairs. I was not in this meeting, it was told to me afterwards. And it was the same, it was right before they submitted their new plans. And they sat there, and Mr. Strine himself assured the staff from the DMVA that all of their concerns would be taken care of. Including by building a large mound of dirt in front of Veterans Home for a sound wall. So the next day I have this call to learn about how it went. And I said, did you see the new plan? Was this new submission presented to you during this meeting? And it was not. So you sat there and you had a meeting with a bunch of high-paid lobbyists and Mr. Shrine himself to, smooth something over when you weren't even being honest about what you want to build there, including a power generation. And the final thing I'll say is that as we move forward on this in whatever fashion, whatever project, even in, adjacent areas, is that there is the blending of hydrogen and methane gas for some of these proposed gas turbine power plants. And that is like a whole new ball game in terms of risks and explosions and things. And that's happening in real time. And the one across the river for the Publicker site in Limerick may not be a formal submitted plan, but it has a large set of turbines that they've already been told that can be an accessory use. So as we sit here and think about this regional impact, and we are targeted because of high voltage lines, it's cheaper for data centers to be built here. We are at the mercy of corporate greed. And so whatever I can do to be helpful in terms of helping you all fight this fight, and you've done a phenomenal job so far, please let me know. But this is where we live, and Derek Shrine doesn't live here. And he doesn't care what happens here. And we do. This is our livelihood, which is invaluable. Our health and well-being is invaluable. And I won't go on about the new, what I believe are heightened risks of national security to putting data centers in a 10-mile blast zone of the nuclear power plant. But thank you very much for your recommendation to the board of supervisors.
Any other comments?
My name's Kevin Ludwig. I live in Spring City on King Street. I just want to mention, I heard right when I was coming in here on KYW that they did a statistic analysis on the general public, and the 20 to 30-year-old people they're not using AI. In fact, there's been a dramatic increase of 22% in the use of AI. So we got to take that in consideration. Is it going to continue to fall? And then we'll have this big vacant pollution in our backyards. Okay, we got to take that in consideration. Also, AI itself is very corrupt. AARP has been writing articles on there's been an increase in corruption in the past year of almost 30%. Because what AI is doing. You probably heard about it, people get calls from their so-called daughters saying they're in trouble. And now you have to have a password for your relatives if they are in trouble. I mean, it's crazy, it's nuts. But I did want to mention my main concern is the pollution. And we'll end up having a big cement dump there, in the end. And we won't know what to do with it. They won't do nothing because they're cheap. All they think about is money. So we have to take that in consideration too. That's all.
Thank you.
Is the planners end with LLC?
Yes.
Yeah, limited liability corporation. Makes it real easy to walk away.
Any other comments? Okay, so we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. I'd like to make another motion, and this one is to submit with our recommendation to the board any planning commission member who would like to add their statements that they prepared for today's meeting along with our motion, as well as to authorize one of us to attend the conditional use hearing and provide a statement on behalf of the planning commission. Indicating all the things we've talked about this evening. So we can figure out who that's gonna be.
You mean everybody? Not just us, but the audience.
I mean, on
Yeah,
behalf of the
just-
things that we talked about,
Yes,
yeah,
what we heard.
yeah.
Well, I'm certainly in favor of that, so I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion. Okay. Okay, so now we can take public comment on non-data center related things, if anybody has anything.
Please no.
Is there anybody online?
Nothing online.
Okay, I will make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.